first glance, it appears like there is no answer to that problem. It's a riddle that cannot be solved. We have to seem to accept it. Prior to us coming to understand this Dhamma, had we not all accepted death as a fact of life? We all live, yeah, so we're going to die one day. Yes, so we just have to accept it and keep going through it. And again and again and again, having to work hard to make a living, we've had to accept it, right? Whether we liked it or not, we've had to accept it. So it was a riddle that we couldn't solve by ourselves. We asked our parents, didn't we? Amma, how can I be happy but not have to go to school? No, there's no way you could do that. Amma, how can I be happy but not have to go to work? No. I remember when I began to understand the world around me, and I figured that Amma and Appachi, or rather at least it was Appachi, leaving home every day and coming back at the evening. I was asking, where is he leaving every day? He leaves in the morning and he comes back at night. Why does he not stay with us? See, he has to go to work. What do you mean he has to go to work? Why can't he work at home? I'm sure there's lots of things we can find for him to do at home. He can make my bed. He can wash my clothes. All these things that you asked me to do, Amma, why don't we just ask Appachi to do? And that's work, right? He said, no. She said, no, that's not how it works. You have to go work for other people. You have to go to work for other people, so they give you something in return, and that's this thing called money. When you earn this money, then you can buy the things you like. You can live where you like. You can do the things you like to be happy. So I was introduced to life gradually, and over time I came to realize that these were terms that had been set into this contract, and we had to abide by them. Up until I came across the Buddha's Dhamma, where I discovered that, hey, no, we don't have to be okay with that. Are you okay with lives, ladies and gentlemen? Are you just okay with it all? If you are, you're in the wrong place. If you're okay with death, you're in the wrong place. If you're okay with the fact that you have to go work hard so you can make a living, that's not what the Buddha's ministry is for. If you're okay with old age, then you don't have to be here. If you're okay with illness, you don't have to be here. If you're okay with losing your loved ones and being happy, or rather coming to terms with that, then you don't have to be here. Because that's not what I am here to help you figure out. That's not what I'm here to help you do. I'm trying to help you go beyond the okay. I'm trying to help you find an answer to that riddle. That's what the Buddha's Dhamma is here for. That's what he gives us this teaching for. See, recently I was reflecting, and while I was doing some meditation the other day, this thought came into my mind, and I'll share that with you at the same time. Imagine, so now I want you all to go into this fantasy world, okay? Imagine there's a large ocean, a huge ocean, and each of us, we are born into the middle of the ocean. We all come we are all born into the middle of this ocean. On the surface, but it's the middle of the ocean. As soon as we are born, we find ourselves not being able to see, we can't hear what's going on, but a few moments later, we're able to open our eyes, and these faint objects start to appear in front of our eyes. We slowly start to hear things. They're faint at first, but we start to hear them. And then at the same time, you begin to feel both your arms are being grasped by two people, one on your left and the other on your right. And then, as you are able to open your eyes and start to see, you turn your head to your sides, and there's a man and there's a woman. And they're holding on to your arms, one on either side. They're holding on to your arms, And you study them, you begin to study them. They're moving their mouths, but you can't understand anything that they say. You hear you hear the noise that's coming out of their mouths, but you can't work out what it is that they're saying. It's just noise. There's lots of noise all over the place. There's lots of lights, flashes of light. There are things that are flying around. But you see, there are lots of other people like you of various sizes on the water, on the surface of the water. But these two people who are on either side of you, grasping onto your arms, as you begin to study them further, you see that they're flapping away with their legs rapidly. And they're doing this so they can stay afloat. But they're holding on to you. You look at your own legs, but they're doing nothing, because you don't know how to do that. But thankfully, you have these two people on either side who are holding on to you, and they're flapping away with their legs, so you stay afloat, while at the same time, they keep themselves afloat. Now, as time progresses, they begin to teach you. They teach you gradually that these noises that come out of their mouths have meaning. And the things that you see around you with your eyes, they start to give you meaning. They teach you how to identify them. So you begin to realize eventually that actually what's going on is there are lots of people like you who are floating on this ocean. The reason that they're still floating on the ocean is because they're all flapping away, trying to stay afloat. And they're also of various ages. Now, small, little people like yourselves, because you can't flap your own legs, because you still don't have the energy to do it by yourselves, there are people on either side who hold on to you, who grasp onto you and do it for you. They keep you afloat. So, over time, these two people, they identify themselves as mother and father. So these are your parents. And they begin to explain to you, why is it that we have to keep doing this? They explain to you, Puta, or Dua, dear child, do you see that we are flapping away as hard as we can? If we were to let go of you right now, you're going to sink. You're going to sink into the water and you're going to die. And when you die, you're not going to see us again. When you die, we're not going to see you again. So it's going to be goodbye. Goodbye. Because we don't like that, and because we wanted you to be with us, we brought you into this world, we want you to stay afloat, we want you to be with us. Therefore, we are holding on to you as hard as we can, and we are flapping away. But we want you to learn to flap as soon as possible. Why? Do you see over there? And they point at you. A little further away in the water, a man starts to sink. He's quite old. And your parents explained to you, a few years ago, he was the best swimmer around. He was the best at staying afloat. But now he has started to sink. Now sometimes other people have to go and help him from time to time. They have to go and remind him, hey, why aren't you flapping your legs? Go on, flap. Otherwise you're going to sink in the water. But eventually he's not going to be able to do it. And he's going to sink into the water. And he's going to die. So to stay afloat, you have to do this. You have to learn to do this. So these parents, they teach us. They teach you how to stay afloat. So they teach you science. They teach you math. They send you to school. By sending you to school, what I mean is they ask some other people who are also trying to stay afloat by flapping their legs. They send you over there into this pool of people, and they say, hey, while you're here, you're going to learn how to stay afloat. So they teach us all sorts of tools and techniques on how to stay afloat. These are all good techniques on if you want to learn how to stay afloat. So this is the school that we've gone to. And some people are really good at this. Some people can somersault in the water. They perform tricks in the water. And then they win awards, and they get awards for being the best at doing that. And everyone says, hey, look at that guy. So when one guy does that, the other guy tries to do the same, so he can be the leader of the clan. But all the while, what's everyone doing? Trying to stay afloat. Everyone's flapping away. Because the moment you stop doing that, you're going to sink. Now, as you keep growing older, your parents also reveal to you a dark secret. It's in fact a horror. This is the horror of the story. They tell you, son, at the same time you came into this world, there are 4 sharks that came into this world. They're the same age as you. They are man-eating sharks. Each one of us, Ammi has 4, I have 4, you have 4. Each one of these people, they have 4 sharks. And they're at the end of this ocean, where there's land, at the end of this ocean, these sharks live. But the day you came into this world, they started their journey. They're traveling towards you. They're coming towards you. Each one coming to each one individually. So there are 4 sharks coming after me. There are 4 coming after you. There's 4 coming after Ammi, and so on and so forth. Every one of these people have these man-eating sharks that are coming your way. All these people who learn to stay afloat, performing all kinds of tricks, all these gimmicks. You know, look, there's one just now. And he points a finger. What you see is there's a shark that's just caught his bait. A shark eating up this man alive. And then you ask, Father, is that going to happen to me one day? Absolutely. These sharks, there are 4 of them, they're coming your way as well. Each and every one of us has this. And as you see that man being engulfed by this shark, he's screaming in pain. All the other people at that point in time, they can't do anything to save this man. They are man-eating sharks. You can't get in the way of a shark. It's just going to eat you up. So there's no refuge at that point in time. These sharks are man-eating sharks, and anything that's in their way, they destroy so that they can get to their prey. This is predator versus prey. That's it, nothing else. And just as you finished explaining that story, they point, hey, here's another one, by the way. Just look over there. Oh, by the way, that was your grandfather. There was a shark that just came and engulfed that man. But Tati, you're crying. Yes, Buddha, I'm crying. These tears in my eyes are tears of grief and sorrow. I can't bear to see the pain of losing my father, your grandfather. But what can I do? You know, while he was alive, he did his best. He flapped his legs so he could stay afloat. But we don't know any other way to get out of this. Some of us, we tried to swim to try to get out of this ocean. But as soon as we discovered there was mile after mile was just water and nothing else, we gave up. So we decided this is not for us. So we've come to terms with this. We've now learned how to be okay with this. We've learned to be okay with man-eating sharks. We've learned to be okay with having to flap our legs to stay afloat. And then you ask, isn't there anyone who's managed to swim and get to the other side? And then the father says, well, you know what? There's a story about a man who many, many years ago, many thousands of years ago, went on this quest. He went and spoke to every man that was alive at the time and asked, hey, shall we try and get out of this? You know, we are flapping away. I can flap, yes, but I can't do this forever. These man-eating sharks, they're approaching us with every moment. What are these man-eating sharks? Disease, decay, death, and birth. These man-eating sharks, they're approaching us with every passing moment. I need to find a way to get out of this. Are you with me or not? Most of the time people said, hey, you know what, we've tried this before, it's not going to work. It's just going to be a waste of time. While we are here, let's just get along with each other. Let's just have a good time. Look at all the other people. They're playing in the water. They're doing their somersaults. Why don't we just go and join them? Let's just be happy. Why are you talking about something that's only going to happen in another 50 years' time? We've all got time. Let's be okay with this. Otherwise, you're spending your valuable time, your valuable life, worrying about something that's only going to happen to you in another 50, 60 years' time. Don't worry about it just now. Leave it. This is what people said. But this man, he was a clever one. He was very wise. So he wasn't okay to be okay with it. So he thought differently. And he determined, no, I'm going to get to the other side. And he swam. He started swimming as far as his body could carry him. Sometimes it was very difficult. There were storms. There were tsunamis. There were tornadoes. But despite all of this, he tolerated that, he bore all the pain, and he went through that to get to the other side. And eventually, he crossed this ocean and got to land. So you ask, Father, so why don't we try to do the same? Well, Putta, it's difficult to do it. And some people say, that was just a fantasy. Some people say, that really didn't happen. Or at least the way to do that, we don't know now. All we know is just to flap our legs. Swimming is something that we don't know how to do now. There's no teacher. That's what some people say. But at the same time, you see, there are actually some people who are swimming. So you decide, you know what, Dad, I don't care what you say. I need to learn to get to the other side of the water. Because if you're telling me that these man-eating sharks are about to get me, be that now in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, or whenever, if these man-eating sharks are coming my way, I can't wait till then. I've just seen grandfather being engulfed by a shark, a man-eating shark. I can't bear to wait. I have to get out of this. So you go and speak to these people. And they explain to you, you can do this. We are trying to do this, and this is how you do it. And they teach you how to swim. Flapping your legs, you can stay in one place, but if you learn to swim, you can now get to the other side of the water. You can get to the shore. So you learn to swim. It takes time. It's not easy, but it takes time. It's difficult, but you learn how to swim because you don't give up. And then you begin to swim. And you keep swimming. And just like you read in the books, just like your father said, tornadoes start coming. Tsunamis coming your way. But you don't give up. Hailstorms, you don't give up. Because if I stop, these sharks, these man-eating sharks, they know exactly where you're in the water. You can't run and hide from these man-eating sharks. That's the problem. Whether you're on this shore or that shore, or rather this side of the water or that side of the water, it doesn't matter. These sharks have pinpoint accuracy on where you are. They're coming your way. So as soon as you change direction, the sharks change direction. They have this instinct. They can smell you from 1,000,000 miles away. They're heading your way. So you don't give up. And you learn to swim. And you swim and swim and swim, and you get to the shore. And once you get to the shore, you've done what it is you need to do. Now you're victorious. Now you're free from these man-eating sharks. This story resembles something? So we are all in this ocean of samsara. This is why I sometimes say we need to, this Dhamma is to help us cross this ocean of samsara. For as long as we're in this samsara, we are in this ocean, ladies and gentlemen, these man-eating sharks are coming our way. These man-eating sharks are jati, jara, vyadi, marana. They've got pinpoint accuracy. They know exactly where you are right now. When you're at home, they know you're at home. When you're in the office, they know you're in the office. When you're here, they know you're here, by the way. You can't run to the temple and hide from them either. You can't run to the moon or Mars or Andromeda. You can't run wherever and hide from them. They know exactly where you are. These sharks, they've got that kind of instinct. They're heading our way. And they have no mercy. When they catch you, that's it. You're their prey. Like a predator that's been hungry for many hundreds of years. They're going to eat you up. The first one to catch you is going to eat you up. It's going to tear you to shreds. Are you okay with that? So if we are not okay with that, then we have to swim. If we don't know how to swim, we have to learn to swim. Those who can teach us how to learn to swim are the Kalyana Mitra. These are the noble friends, the noble associates. They're swimming and then they teach us how to swim. And they learn to swim from other noble friends. And they from others. And they themselves from others. And you go all the way back, you find this, there was this one man who discovered, who learned how to swim, who taught himself how to swim. He made lots of mistakes. When you have no teacher, you're bound to make mistakes, right? Imagine you give a kid a hammer. You don't teach the kid how to use a hammer. What are they going to do? First they're going to hammer their fingers. Then they're going to hammer their little mulli. Let me see what's going to happen if I whack you with this. You're going to cause yourself harm. You're going to cause other people harm. And that's possible. That can happen. So the Bodhisattva, while he didn't cause other people harm, he caused himself a lot of harm. In trying to find the way to swim, in trying to learn how to swim, he went through all of that. But he didn't give up. Despite the tsunamis, despite the tornadoes. You see, he didn't even know if there was land. There was no teacher. It was through faith that he went on that journey. At least for us, we have scriptures, we have the Kalyana Mitra who teach us, hey, there is land, there is shore at the end of this water. So if you can swim, you will find it. But for the Bodhisattva, there was no hope there. All that courage, all that hope was self-generated within himself. All that energy he had to muster by himself. There was no one else there to encourage him. There was no one there to guide him. All that he had to do by himself. But he didn't give up. Because he looked around and he saw, it's not just me. Look at all these poor people. Each and every one of them, my parents, my uncles, my aunts, my brothers, my sisters, my relations, my friends, they're all sinking. All the while they're flapping away. All of this is abhisankara, trying to stay afloat. Some people can do this really well, but not forever. When you have lots of money, what can you do? You can do this pretty fast. Or you can hire someone to do it on your behalf. They're doing it themselves, for them, but they're also doing it for you. You've hired somebody to do something for you. You can do that if you're wealthy. But one day, it's going to have to stop. Your body can no longer bear to continue that exercise because you don't have the energy to sustain that. And then when that day comes, whether you like it or not, you're going to sink. You're going to sink in the water. And then you're going to suffocate. And you're going to die. Either that or the 4 sharks are going to come and get you. So there's no way to run. You can keep running from these sharks. You can go to this side of the water, that side of the water. You can go there, you can go here. But even if you do your best to stay away from these sharks, you're still having to stay afloat. And you can't do this forever. You can't go through this process of earning yourself a living forever, right? You can only do this for as long as your body can sustain that process. One day you're going to have to stop. Whether you like it or not, your body is going to say, I can't do it anymore. You want to go, but your body can't go. You see, the thing is, right now, it's quite the opposite. Your body can go, but you don't want to go. Crossing this ocean of samsara, your body has the energy to do it. You can all swim. You're all still young. You can do it. But your mind doesn't want to go. But one day, it's going to be the other way around. Your minds want to go, but that day, your body's not going to be able to do it. At least if your mind's not willing to go, you can have the association of a noble friend and get them to encourage you. They can guide you. They can energize you. No, hey, we have to go. The sharks are approaching us and they're so close. I mean, each of you, I ask you to ask yourselves, how close do you think your sharks are now? These man-eating sharks, how close are they to you now? When you first came into this world, they were a good distance, but now they've got sharp teeth and their sense of smell is so strong, so sharp, they know just where you are. Right now, they know where you are. If you are sat on a particular seat right now, they know that you are in that seat and not the seat to your left. And these sharks are coming. Man-eating sharks. They're voracious. They have an unsatiable appetite for human flesh. Not anybody else's, yours. Because you came into this world with these sharks. They're going to come and eat you up. So run while you can, because now, right now, your bodies can do this. But pretty soon, although your minds are going to want to do it, your bodies aren't going to be able to do it. So be earnest. Today we have the good opportunity, we have the good fortune of coming into this world at a time when there was a teacher who learned how to do this by himself. For many periods, for many eons, when people come and go, are born into this ocean and they die, nobody knows if even there was a teacher who learned how to do it by themselves. People are just blind, they don't know any other way. But today we are born into an era of the Buddha, who by himself learned how to do this. And then he taught us how to do this. And the Dhamma that helps us to find our way through to Nibbana exists clearly. But it's not going to be here forever. We have to do this while we can. This is our Father, and I tell you this time and time again, the Buddha is our Father. The other day I had to go to the hospital to get some treatment, and I remember this because while I was at the hospital I had this thought, and then I reflected on the series of events that happened from the moment I went into the hospital, or from the moment I left the monastery to the moment I came back to the monastery. And I'll tell you what happened. I came walking down from the monks' quarters. There was a vehicle that was parked. The door was opened for me. All I had to do was get in, and then the door was shut. The driver gets into the vehicle. He drives me to the hospital, and I took a nap because I was feeling quite exhausted. And I took a nap while I was driven to the hospital. When I got into the hospital, I got off the vehicle, and then there was a man that came running. I think he was an attendant at the hospital. He came running, and he took me up the stairs on a lift. He opened the lift for me. He ushered me into the lift. He pressed all the right buttons. I had to do nothing. I didn't have to do anything. Took me up to the right floor, asked me to come and take a seat, and before I got a seat, he came and laid his white clothes, just like you've done here today, so we could sit on those chairs. And then he went to the doctor and spoke to the doctor and said, so and so is here to see you. And whilst there was a waiting list, the doctor said, no, please ask them to come in. And we were able to go and see the doctor straight away. And then at the end of the consulting session, the doctor says, he draws a line across the receipt and goes, cancelled, implying there's no fee that was required for the treatment. So, this is one of the best consultant doctors in Sri Lanka. In all of Sri Lanka, I'm informed. I didn't look for the doctor. That was what I was informed. So I would imagine there was quite a fee for that, but he just wrote the word cancelled on it. And he says, go to the pharmacy and ask for these medicines, and they'll give you a discount for this as well. And I had to do nothing. In fact, I had to, so there was the gentleman who took me to the hospital. He knew what was wrong with me. And all I had to do was extend my leg. And he explained what was wrong with it as well. I didn't have to say a word. While the doctor said, could I please inspect your leg, I had to just extend my leg forward. And all the explaining what was wrong, why, what happened, what caused it, what the symptoms are, everything, this man who took us there, this gentleman who took us there, he explained everything. And then at the end of the session, we were put back into the vehicle and then brought back to the monastery. So here's what I was thinking. I remembered when I was a layman, and I'm sure you'll have this experience. When you go somewhere and you want to get something done in an office or somewhere like that, right? Don't you generally say, hey, I know such and such? You know, you speak of your affiliations with certain people, right? It's a thing that we've learned to do now, right? In our culture, it's kind of like the dumb thing now. You go to an office and you say, you know, I'm related to so-and-so. I know this guy. I know that guy. You know, so-and-so is my father. So-and-so is my uncle. You know, I'm friends with this person, so would you mind doing me a favor? And then you sometimes jump the queue. You sometimes get a discount, right? You get special treatment, right? Come on, I know you've all experienced this, right? Don't look at me with blank faces. We've all done this at some point in our lives. So I remembered as a layman, you know, I used to say, you know, this is my dad, you know, such and such. You know, my uncle's such and such, you know, I'm this and this, I'm so and so. And then I thought, well, you know, on that experience which I had going to the hospital, I didn't say a word. But still I got special treatment. I didn't have to even open the door of the vehicle. Someone opened it for me. I didn't have to drive the car or the van that we were in. The van was driven for us. I took a nap while I was on the way there, and I took a nap on the way back. And then when I walked into the hospital, you know, an attendant came running. He took me upstairs to the right floor, took me to see the doctor. He put this clothes so we could sit on the chairs, right? A special first-class treatment. I didn't say a word. But then I realized, without actually saying anything, I was saying something. I was saying, my father is who? The Buddha. I was speaking of my affiliation with the Buddha without uttering a single word. Walk downstairs, walk up to the car. My father's the Buddha. The door gets opened. Venerable sir, please take a seat. The driver gets in. Who are you driving? Children. These are children of the Buddha. I have to drive them wherever they need to be. Take them to the hospital. Attendant comes running. Why? He sees what? I'm the father. My father is the Buddha. He takes me up to the doctor says, no, bring them in. Don't let them wait. Why? My father is the Buddha. All the while I was saying, my father is the Buddha. I was speaking of my affiliation to the greatest man that ever lived. See, all this I enjoy today because of the Buddha. And I went there with another monk, and I explained to him, you know, don't for any moment, because he was telling me, Swami Nuhansa, what you say is right. I remember as we walked in there, everyone stood up from their seats. Don't for a single moment think that they are showing respect to you as a person. They are not to the individual. People show respect, and that respect is directed towards the robe. The robe indicates that you are the son of the Buddha. It's your father that they respect, not you. Bear that in mind. That ticket got cancelled. Why? Because my father's the Buddha. Medicines for free. Why? My father's the Buddha. That's all I had to say without even saying it. But all of that didn't come for free. Not to him it didn't. How much toil, how much pain he went through to give me all this. You know, like I said, I walked into the hospital. All I had to do was extend my leg. That gentleman who took us to the hospital, he explained everything. I didn't have to speak a word. All that I enjoy today is thanks to him. So it was something I reflected on the way back from the hospital, and I thought I'd share that with you because, when you stand up as I walk in here, when our monks walk in here, I know fully well that that's not a mark of respect to me. I don't take it one tiny bit as a mark of respect to me. It's a mark of respect to my Father, nobody else. That's why I go and worship him before I take this seat. All of this water, the drink that you offer me at the end, all of that is for my Father, not for me. And I also say my eldest brother, the great elder Venerable Sariputta. My second eldest brother, the great elder Mahamoggallana. That's who you respect. And that's good. That's who you should be respecting. That's who you should direct your venerance to. Not me. I'm a nobody. See, this is the ministry that these great personalities that introduced us to. The pain that they went through was to gift us something, ladies and gentlemen. While it's great for us to think about them, reflect on those qualities, and I think last week I got a question about the Dasa Anussati. I will be covering them in a future sermon because I went back and started to study the material and tried to convert some of the text there into English, and I think it's going to take me some time to do it. Because in the Dasa Anussati, these are reflections on the qualities of the Buddha. What you're asking me to do is no easy task. Explaining this in Sinhala is hard enough. To then try and find English terms that really convey the meaning behind these words. I don't know when I'm going to be able to do it, but as you asked the question, I will do it one day. These are reflections on the Buddha, his qualities. We are talking about the unequaled one, the peerless one. There's no one who's equal to him. There's no one who can be compared to him. No one. He's perfect. Not one tiny fault. Perfect. So you're asking me to describe his qualities. When the Buddha says himself, if I were to expound the qualities of a Buddha, and that's all I do till I die, I still will not have completed expounding the qualities of a Buddha. It's only a Buddha that can do justice to the qualities of the Buddha. And even if I started now and do just that and nothing else, till the moment of my death, I will still not be able to complete. So had the Buddha actually taken the time to expound the qualities of the Buddha and go into detail about them, we wouldn't have any of the other material that we have today. So you're asking me to expound these qualities and the qualities of the Dhamma, the qualities of the Mahasangha. So that's three of them. Buddha Anussati, Dhamma Anussati, Sangha Anussati. Deva Anussati. The qualities of a Deva. How does one become a Deva? Because that's what matters. Sila Anussati. The qualities of virtue. How do you reflect on virtue? The virtue that you have within yourself and the virtue that you want to adhere to. The virtue that you want to instill within yourself. So these are a few examples of the Dasa Anussati, and I will speak of them over time, but I ask you, please do give me some time, because it's going to take some time. I'll need some time to find the meanings behind these terms, find the profound meaning, because otherwise I'm not doing it justice. It's not fair for me to sit down on this seat and for you to ask me a question like that and just give you an answer that's just very superficial. It doesn't cut. If it doesn't make any sense, then I might as well just say, go read a book. That's not going to be doing justice. But what we need to do really is these qualities that the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha, what we need to do, ladies and gentlemen, is really try and instill in these qualities in our own lives. These are not qualities that the Buddha explained to us so we can go and venerate him day and night. Itipi so bhagava arahang samma sambuddho vijja charana sampanno. Today it's just become a prayer, right? You worship the Buddha, you worship the Dhamma, you worship the Sangha. It's become a prayer to recite. Do you think someone like the Buddha would come into this world and say, hey, I'm going to offer you a prayer. Just keep chanting it so you can worship me. That's what you should be doing right now. You know, this is the Dhamma. I'm gonna come up with a prayer. You can just keep chanting it as a mark of respect towards the Dhamma. This is the Sangha. Here's a prayer. Just keep chanting it as a mark of respect to the Sangha. When he says, like a man whose head is on fire, put everything to a side and try to become a Sotapanna. Do you think he would say, here's a prayer, why just keep chanting it as a mark of respect to me? You know, this is a personality who was respected by the Mahabrahma, by the Sakradeva. Every being he surpassed. Every sentient being in all of the universes, he surpassed. You know, gods came and worshipped at his feet. Why do you think, you know, little pesky people like you and I, he comes and gives a prayer, hey, just chant it, pray, worship at my feet. The Buddha was not like that. He had no interest in asking you, inviting you to come and worship at his feet. He had no interest in doing that. What he said was, here's my Dhamma, take it and redeem yourselves from samsara. So actually, the qualities of the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha are really nothing but a prescription. It's a prescription. A prescription that contains medicines. Medicines that one by one, if you start to treat yourself with, by the end of the 9 qualities of the Mahasangha, by the end of that, you have become a Sotapanna. That is by instilling those qualities within yourself. Anuttaram punya ketan, that's where you have to start. Anuttara pinketa. You see, now I can't just quite simply give it in single. I have to go and find the words that would make meaning in English. Right? So, give me time and I'll do that. I promise to do it. But what I want you to bear in mind is these are not chants, these are not prayers that He's given us. These are not hymns, if you like, that He's given us to chant day in, day and night as a mark of respect to the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. These are prescriptions that He's given us. If you abide by this prescription, you're going to heal yourself. You're going to become a Sotapanna. You're going to become a Sakurdagami. You're going to become an Anagami. And finally, by the time you've completed the qualities, by completion I mean by instilling those values within yourself. By the time you've completed instilling the values contained within Itipi So Bhagava Araham Samma Sambuddha, within that stanza, by the time you've completed instilling those values within yourself, you'll become an Arahatun Hansa. That is what this prescription is for. It's not a prayer to keep chanting day and night. It's the path to Nibbana. That's what He's given us. So we'll go through that later on, over time. I'll need some time, so please be kind to give me some time to do that. But fundamentally, the Buddha's Shasana, the Buddha's ministry, is really for us to figure out, using his Dhamma, the answer to this suffering that we go through every waking moment. This idea that I call the pelima. And I've used words like affliction, agony, frustration, and vexation in the past. Because what worldly beings do, what mundane worldly people do when they come across this vexation, this pelima, is to relieve themselves from that. And to relieve themselves from that, they come to this, because they're in this view of Miccha Ditti, this view that dictates, if you're feeling vexation right now, if you're feeling this pelima right now, what you have to do is go through the process of attaching yourself to something again. You see, this goes like a vicious circle. This way, that way, this way, that way. I'll explain this to you. When you have attached yourself to something, right, we can start there. Look at this process, how this is a circle that cannot be broken until you come into Sammaditthi. We go through this circle, this round. It's a round. It's a round with no end. Clearly, a round has no end. No beginning, no end. Until you cut it at some point. Until you dissect this circle. So, when you attach yourself to something, and why do we attach? Because of ignorance. Where there's ignorance, we attach ourselves to whatever. As soon as we've attached ourselves to something, now we are yearning for that. Anything, absolutely anything. Think about why you turn your heads when you hear a noise somewhere. You hear a sound. When someone says, hey, I've got something. Think of someone reading a newspaper and say, hey, look at this. Now, until they show you the paper, you're feeling uncomfortable. Go on, show me, what is it? Don't worry. Don't do that, come on, please. You say you've seen something interesting, now come on, show it to me. That feeling of vexation, that feeling of discomfort is intolerable. So what we do is we attach ourselves to something in the hope that it's going to relieve us from that feeling of discomfort. Remember last week I gave you an etymology for the word pelima? Pahe ellima? This paha being what? The five? Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. And that's where I, this self exists. Right? Self is nothing but chittas arising and passing away on the foundation of avidya. So there's a foundation of ignorance, and on top of that, there's chittas that arise and pass away. So what happens when you become an arahatun hanse? The foundation of ignorance is destroyed. Now you just have chittas arising and passing away. There's no self any longer. There are tilts that are used to hold these chittas up on the foundation of avidya that we call mama, self. And these tilts is the self. Remove ignorance, those tilts fall. Because we seem to be we seem to have this idea that it is these tilts that keep this process up. If I'm not here, if I don't exist, if the self doesn't exist, then what happens? We seem to think, hey, all of a sudden if the self disappears, then I'm going to die. I'm going to not exist any longer. So for me to survive, for me to exist, I have to continue to sustain myself. Remember, this self is the mama that I'm speaking of, right? I have to continue to sustain the self for self to exist, for this chittas to exist. But really, the chittas have nothing to do, this consciousness has nothing to do with the self. This is why even in an arahan, the chittas arise and pass away. The chittas arise and pass away because of causality. When the causes are there, you get the result. Whether there's a self or not has nothing to do with it. But ignorance says, no, we need the self to survive. We need this self so we can use these tilts to keep this tent of consciousness upheld on the foundation of ignorance. So imagine this. So obviously you can see this hall here right now. Just imagine for a moment that this ceiling did not need these pillars to hold it up. It really didn't. But looking at it, we feel like, hey, if we were to remove these pillars, the roof is going to collapse, don't we? We feel like that. We remove these pillars and the roof is going to collapse. That is the ignorance. Because these pillars are built on a foundation, that is this floor. That is the ignorance. But reality is, no, this roof can exist on its own. It doesn't need these pillars to stand, to be held up there, in that position. But for as long as ignorance exists, we are not able to come to that conclusion. So using the Dhamma, we tap away, we clip away at ignorance. And while ignorance is removed, then these pillars can no longer stand, because these pillars are standing on ignorance, the foundation of ignorance. Remove these pillars one day and you'll see, oh, the roof is just fine. Hasn't collapsed. And that is the nature of an Arahatun Vahanse. So this consciousness, it doesn't need our support. This consciousness does not stay like this because of these pillars, but rather it has the causes that keep it there. And it could be the way that it's constructed. But it's not these pillars. I'm just using an example here. I hope it makes sense to some of you at least. So an Arahatun Vahanse understands entirely that there are the causes that give rise to a certain effect. And it's not me that's responsible for these effects to come into place. It's not me that manifest these effects. It's the causes. Avidya, tanha, karma, ahara, nibbatti. Ignorance, attachment. Now, yes, I know what you're thinking. Well, hang on, ignorance. Not this ignorance. Ignorance that existed in the past. An Arahatun Vahanse's consciousness is like an engine that, imagine a vehicle, you drive it up onto a mountain. And now while it's at the tip of the mountain, you put it into neutral and you let go. Now how long is this vehicle going to move? For as long as there's potential energy that's within this vehicle, right? Once the potential energy has ceased or has expired, then the vehicle comes to a stop. That is the nature of an Arahatun Vahanse. The consciousness that arises in his mind are vipakas of previous karmas. Previous deeds that were done by exerting energy through avidya, karma and tanha. That built potential energy within an Arahatun Vahanse. Rather, before that being became an Arahatun Vahanse. That gave the potential energy to this being. But at the point that he became an Arahatun Vahanse, no longer is he going to put the foot on the pedal. Now it's just neutral. No longer does he use his gearbox. Now it's just neutral flow. And that neutral movement is only going to be there for as long as the potential energy has expired in that vehicle. And once that's happened, then the vehicle comes to a stop. But if you and I, imagine if you and I were the vehicle, for each of us, we have a journey to go. We want to go through in samsara. We don't want samsara to stop. We want to go through in samsara. Because our thoughts tell us, our ignorance tells us the next moment is worth living. It's worth existing. Going through in samsara is worthwhile. And so we keep putting our foot on the pedal, accelerating from time to time, changing gear. But once you become an Arahatun Vahanse, no more foot on the pedal. Gear comes back to neutral. Now it's just free flow. When that comes to a stop, that's it. No movement from there on. So the reason that we go through this process of giving rise to a self, is because of attachment. So when we have ignorance, we find ourselves attached to something. So I'm going back to that vicious circle I was beginning to explain. When we find ourselves giving value to something, whatever that thing might be, whether it's sights, sounds, smells, tastes, physical sensation, right? Whatever we find ourselves giving value to, we attach. As soon as we've attached to something, now we are in a state of vexation. For whatever it is that we've attached ourselves to. We want it. We are yearning for it. I mean, take a really basic example. The last time you bought something from the shop, okay, something that you really liked. Perhaps it could have been an item of jewelry. It could have been an item of clothing. It could have been the latest gadget that you've bought for yourself. Okay, the last time you walked into that shop and you bought something for yourself, I'd guarantee that there would have been a few moments from the time you saw that thing and thought, I want that. That time span between I wanting it and you acquiring it, that feeling there was not a comfortable feeling. That's why you went into that shop to buy it so that you could put yourself out of that uncomfortable feeling. You know, when you want something and you can't get it, is that a good feeling or a bad feeling? That's positive or negative? It's a negative feeling. You want it, but you can't get it. You want it, and you know you have to wait till next week to get it. Everyone remember Christmas? You know, when I was back in the UK, you know, we celebrated Christmas. There's nothing wrong with that, is there? What we do when we celebrate Christmas, we have a Christmas tree at home, and we used to gift each other presents, right? Because that's the culture. You get used to the culture. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't harm anybody, so it's a time to celebrate. So we used to do that at home. So I remember when it was about a week to Christmas, I know, it's a time when parents go out, they go shopping, and, they bring these boxes in black bags so you can't see through them. You don't know what's inside of them. So they bring them and they put them into their lockers, into their cupboards, and then lock them, and the key goes somewhere else. So, now you know that there's something that is for you. Some of it is for you. You have to wait for it. Or, for example, if it's your birthday, and there's a gift that's wrapped up, and you just have to wait until the next day. That feeling of waiting for it, that's not an easy one, is it? That's always an uneasy feeling. You don't like that feeling. Imagine you wake up in the morning and it's your birthday, or you think it's your birthday, and say, "Mother, can I have my gift now, please?" "Oh, you know what, we've decided we're going to wait until Manli's birthday, which is next week, and we're going to have the two birthdays together." How would that make you feel? It's not the birthday that comes next week that you have a problem with. It's the fact that there's a present that you thought you were going to get today, for which you're going to have to wait till next week. Now, that is not a good feeling. You have to wait. So once you've attached yourself to something, waiting for that thing to become yours is not a good feeling. That's a very negative feeling. That's an uneasy feeling. It's a feeling of vexation. Why? Pahaka ellim. There's an object. Through that object, you're going to get sight, sound, smell, tastes, and physical sensations. And each time, those sight, sound, smell, tastes come your way, within your mind, you give rise to what? Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. Your baby is crying. Baby who? Maybe Natasha's crying, and you can feed the baby. So this is what you do. When the baby is crying, mothers, right? When your baby is crying, is that a good feeling or a bad feeling? You have the answer. When your baby is crying at home, I want this, I want that. Or perhaps they can't even speak, right? They're just crying away. Mothers, I'm sure that's not a good feeling. Or fathers, that's not a good feeling. You want to find out why the baby is crying. You want to get it to stop crying. That's why after you've done everything you possibly can, you just stick a dummy in its mouth. Now stop crying. Even at least that's going to stop you from crying. So that feeling of there's a problem that I need to fix is not a good feeling. You want to put yourself out of it as soon as possible. So once you've attached yourself to something, you're now in a state of vexation, that pelima, and you want to relieve yourself from it. To relieve yourself from it, ignorance tells us that the answer to this problem is in going and acquiring what it is that we have desired. Acquisition is the answer to our problem. Who says that? Ignorance tells us that. Ignorance tells us acquisition of whatever it is that you're attached to is the answer to your problem. So what do? We do abhisankara. Mano abhisankara, vachi abhisankara, and kaya abhisankara. That's conducting our speech, our mind, and our body to gain what it is that we have attached ourselves to. Now, as soon as you have gone forth and attached and acquired what it is that you have now so desired, remember, what you have attached to is also subject to what? Disease, decay, and death. Is there anything in this world that you have attached yourself to that is not subject to disease, decay, and death? Up until this point, anything that you can name? One thing? I'm not talking about the macro, I'm talking about the micro. No, I'm not talking about the micro car, by the way. I'm talking about the micro that happens within your minds. It's in our minds this suffering happens. And this pelima, this vexation we experience with every thought. Because remember, it's these thoughts within which Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana arises. It's this Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana that we cling on to. That's why it's called the 5 what? Clinging aggregates. Pancha Upadana Skandha. So we attach ourselves, we cling on to these 5 aggregates, which are not on the outside, these are on the inside. But they arose on the inside, they arose in our mind with the help of those things that are on the outside. Now if I say the word mother, if you've never seen your mother before, what would you say? What do you mean mother? I give you the name of a food. Let's say I say Chatalappam. What's Chatalappam? No, you're going to go, what's Chatalappam? I don't know what Chatalappam is. Exactly. You see, now when I say the word Chatalappam, you can't give rise to Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana within your mind. That model, remember we spoke of the pentagon? Ferrari in a pentagon? It was an old sermon we did many months ago, I think. Right? These pentagons, which are our models that we create within our minds. Now you can't create that pentagon, this pentagon of a model. Why? Because you haven't seen it. You haven't heard of it. You haven't smelt it. You haven't tasted it. You haven't felt it. These 5 faculties are your doors. Your doors through which the mind takes in food, takes in nutriment to give rise to Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana in your mind. See, the mind doesn't need anything other than the 5. That's all the mind is interested in. Yesterday or the day before, I think it was the day before, some young novice monks, they came up to me and they said, Swami Mohan said, when I was a lay boy, or a layman, so they're very young, about the age of maybe 14, 15, 16. So, it's that age where they're going to start to understand the world, they're going to start to understand themselves, right? They go through puberty, right? So, hormones running all over the place, right? I mean, we're all human beings, so it happens to everybody, right? They're not people from Mars, are they? We're all human beings. But what we're trying to do using the Buddha's Dhamma is to identify that the problem's not outside, the problem's inside. Right? So they come and tell me, Swami Mohan said, sometimes I get these thoughts, these thoughts come into my mind of sensuality. And these feelings, when they come into my mind, I feel uneasy. I feel vexation. I know that I'm suffering inside. I feel like I want to go and do something about it. I feel like the way to, when I feel this feeling of discomfort, it's sight, sound, smells, tastes, and touch that's going to relieve me from this suffering. But I know now, thanks to the Buddha's Dhamma, that that's not the answer to this problem. But still it happens. What can we do? So he's asking me. And I said, son, it's natural for you to experience this. You're going through that age in life where puberty is happening. And the samanantara is being created within your body, which is the conditions for the anantaras to come and take seed. Okay? So your hormones aren't helping you in that way. So your thoughts are now sometimes leaning towards sensuality. But thankfully, thanks to the Buddha's Dhamma, you understand that this is problematic. I can't give in to my feelings now. Perhaps if I was a lay person, when those feelings arise, I would go and indulge in sensuality, and that would be the end of that. But I understand that that's not the answer to this problem, because once is never enough. I mean, think about your own lives. When you had those feelings, those thoughts, when you felt the urge, right? Doing it once, was that enough? No, it was okay for a little while. After that, comes back again. Then you have to go and do it again. And then it comes back again, and again, and again. When's the end to this? Every time you're feeling that uneasiness, that discomfort, then you go and relieve yourself from suffering, never redeeming yourself from suffering. You're not finding out the cause for that suffering and then eradicating it at the roots. What you're doing is plastering over the problem. That's not what the Buddha's ministry is for. That's not why we've done robes. So that's what I explained to these young monks. I said, as laymen you would have done that, but now you're better than what you used to be. Now you know better. Now there's a different way we tackle these problems. And I said, think about, perhaps, some of them, they've had girlfriends when in their lay lives. And I said, think about why you went out with that girl. At the fundamental level, what is it that you really looked for? What did she look for? Have you never said you love her? Have you never said that? Yes, I have said that. Did she never say, I love you? Yes, she said that. Many a time she said that, and I've said that in return. But do you now understand that it's not your body that wants this, but it's your mind that's asking for this? Because if you were an Arahatun Wahanse right now, if I could transform you into an Arahatun Wahanse, would you tell me, Swami Wahanse, I need to go and do this? No, you wouldn't. Right? So it's your mind that has a problem, because at becoming an Arahatun Wahanse, your body doesn't change one bit. Right? When Rahula became an Arahatun Wahanse at the age of 16, he was going through puberty. But he never felt the need to go and indulge in sensuality after that point, right? In fact, after you become an Anagami, then that urge disappears. Not because there's a transformation that happens in the body, but because that pelima goes away. That vexation goes away. We begin to understand clearly that this feeling that I experience is nothing but delusion. This joy, this pleasure that I seek is not real. It's just relief from pain, from suffering that I'm seeking. It's an understanding, nothing else, ladies and gentlemen. This is what we need to understand. Going through this path, we're not trying to fool ourselves or trick ourselves into something. Becoming a monk or even as laymen, by going on this journey, we're not trying to brainwash ourselves. That's not what we're trying to do. We're just trying to see right from wrong. We're trying to unveil the truth. Because once you understand that this pleasure that I experience is nothing but delusion, and the veil is ignorance itself, what I'm seeing is delusion and the veil is behind the veil of ignorance, then you want to stop tricking yourself. Because right now, if when you engage in sensuality, you enjoy pleasure, you experience pleasure, when you begin to understand the Dhamma, you realize, hey, this is the delusion. This is the delusion. This is the foolery. This is the trickery. Not the other way around. So what we are trying to do right now is to understand that the problem is we are fooled. We are tricked. Our own minds, the raga, dvesha, moha that have defiled our minds, this avidya and tanha that have blinded us, is tricking us. So relieving myself from the urge is not the answer to the problem. Because, like I said, we've done it so many times. Was it ever enough? No. How many times have you watched TV and said, that's enough, I don't want to watch TV again? No, when you get back home, aren't you going to watch TV again tonight? Yes. The last time you listened to a song and you said, that's it, I don't want to listen to songs again. Enough. No, I don't need to listen to it anymore. Listening to music, listening to a song is not the answer to satisfying the urge. It will satisfy the urge for that point in time, but that urge is going to keep coming back. It's like, you know how sometimes you deal with stray dogs? When stray dogs come into your garden, right? I mean, nowadays you have walls around your home, so you don't have stray dogs like back in the day. But, when there was a time when these, our gardens there weren't walls built around our gardens. Stray dogs used to come in and go all the time. So you used to chase them. Chasing the dog was okay until what? It came back again. You chase it once, it comes back again. You chase it again, you throw a stick at it, and it goes, but perhaps a day later, 2 days later, it's going to come back again. For as long as you have food that you keep throwing out of the kitchen, the dog's going to smell it, and it's going to come looking for it. Instinct is going to keep driving the dog back into your home, right? So the answer to the problem is not to keep chasing the dog. What is the answer to the problem? Is to stop throwing food outside your kitchen. Because for as long as you're going to have, food that you've chucked out of your kitchen, out into your garden, then the dogs are going to keep coming back. So remove the food, take the food away, stop doing that, and the dogs will stop coming into your garden. But what do people do? They just keep throwing sticks at the dogs, they keep throwing stones at the dog, go away, and just keep chasing the dog. So likewise, for as long as you have the food that is avidya and tanha, these urges are going to keep coming back. And when the urges keep coming back to you, relieving yourself from the urge by going and indulging in whatever it is that you feel the urge for, and that doesn't have to just be sexual urge. It could be anything. What about the urge to look at things, look at sights, to please your eyes? That's an urge, is it not? What about the urge to listen to sounds? That's an urge. What about the urge to taste something? Something's in your fridge. Your dad says, Puta, don't touch it till tomorrow morning. Or Amma's made a pudding, it's in the fridge. It's for tomorrow's party. Don't touch it till tomorrow. How many times? Oh, good. Tasted. Right in front of you. Without any trouble, without any bother. No bother at all. No mouth salivating. No keep glancing at it from time to time. No keep looking if anyone's watching you. None of that. Isn't that better than relieving yourself at the first opportunity you get? Because this is a once and for all cure, remedy. Whereas the relieving yourself from the discomfort, relieving yourself from that vexation is not a once and for all solution. It's a thing you have to keep doing every single time. Like chasing those dogs away. Every time the dogs come in, you're going to have to throw sticks and stones at them. But take the food away. Stop throwing food in the garden, and then they're not going to keep coming back. So let's go back to that story that that sermon I was giving them. You were in a relationship, and you know quite well that it's the mind that's looking for this. And then I asked them, what is it that you think the mind's looking for? Nothing other than the 5. Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. Nothing else. The mind does not want the girlfriend. Your mind does not want the girlfriend. Your mind does not want chocolate. Your mind does not want the rose. It does not want the perfume. It does not want any of that. The mind just wants Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. That's it. But we use these faculties because Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana does not exist in the outside world. In the outside world, yes, there is Rupa, but we are talking about two different types of Rupa. This is Rupa, yes. This is Rupa, yes. This is Rupa, yes. But we are talking about the Ru Opnangvima that happens in our mind. Remember, I think last week I gave you the etymology behind that. Ru Opnangvana. Opnangvana kila kiyanne mokadda? To give shape. We give different shapes according to the nama rupas that we have, we cling on to. Like I said, I've said this before. Take two people. One, a young child at the age of 6. The other, 16. The other, a man of 70. And I say the word woman. The child thinks of the mother. The 16-year-old thinks of his girlfriend. A middle-aged man might think of his wife, but the elderly gentleman might think of his daughter. I've said the same word, it's the same sound that came out of my mouth, but each one gave different shape to the same sound. So that's the rupa I'm talking about, not the rupa in the outside world. The rupa that we form within our, this is why it's called formations, because we fabricate them. And it's like giving us a bit of cloth. Imagine I give you all a piece of cloth and I say, go now, sew a handkerchief. Are you all going to come back with the same handkerchief? No, they're all going to look different. Each and every one's going to look different. Or I say, here's a pencil, here's a bit of paper, go draw a picture. You're all going to come back with a different picture, right? It's the same objects I've given you. From the outside world, you've received the same objects, but in the inside world, you have an entirely different world, haven't you? So that's what happens. So I said, you know, when you were in those relationships, and you said, hey, I love you, did you really mean that? As a guy or a girl, what you really got to understand is, the reason that this person is going out with me, or is friends with me, or is associating with me, is because he or she is able to give rise to Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana, and I am just the nutriment for that. What he sees when he looks at me is just the nutriment for that. I mean, how can you experience another person? It's either Rupa, Shabda, Gandha, Rasa, Sparsha. Or person or anything, right? There is no other way we can experience anything else, absolutely anything in this world. How do we experience? Rupa, Shabda, Gandha, Rasa, Sparsha. These are our faculties that allow us to experience the outside world so that we can do what? Create the inside world. These are our inputs, our peripherals, through which we take the inputs from the outside world to create our own inside world. And we create a different story. Each one of us creates a different story. So when a girl looks at a guy and says, are you really in love with me? Or, don't take this the wrong way, is it me you love or this body that you love? What do I mean by body? Because what is it that he's seeing? It is the body that he's seeing, the Rupa. In other words, you say you love me because you love this body. Remember, I'm not talking about this. I'm not talking about the body in that way or in that sense. I hope you are intelligent enough to understand what it is I'm trying to say. Because what is it that the other person experiences? Rupa, Shabda, Gandha, Rasa, Sparsha. So you experience me through what it is that you see when you look at me. You experience me through what it is that you hear when you associate with me. So you want me to speak. I start speaking. Now you can hear my voice. And that helps you create an inside world within yourself. Now you come close to me. And now you can smell me. Now you create an inside world within you. And then touch and taste are the same. You create an inside world within you. And it's because I am the nutriment. I can provide the nutriment for you to create that inside world within you. You say, you love me. So is it really me that you love? Or what it is that I can help create within your own? Or is it what I give so you can create the world within you that you love? It's like I give you the bricks. You go and build your house. You love me because I can keep giving you bricks. But you build your own house. Again, we go back to suppliers and consumers. I'm supplying you with goods. These are the bricks, so you can go and build your own house. That's why you love me. So really, don't say you love me. It's not me that you love. It's the Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana that arise within you. It's that world that you create for yourself within your own mind, within your own consciousness, that you love, and all I'm doing is providing the nutriment so you can create it for yourself. That's it. You see, this is why when I can no longer provide that nutriment, what happens then? Why do couples break up? Think, ladies and gentlemen, think. Why do couples break up? Before marriage, she said something that I didn't expect her to say. He said something that I didn't expect him to say. She did something that I didn't expect her to do. What are all these things? They're all again sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. I mean, how else can you experience the world? Because really, if you love the person, if it's the person that you love, it shouldn't matter how she looks, how she smells, how she speaks, how she walks, if it's the person. But is it the person that you love? It's not the person that you love. It's the sights, the sounds, the smells, the tastes, and the sensations that you can experience through that person that you take in so you can create your own world inside. These are the bricks that you take from the other person so you can build your own castle, so you can be king in your own castle. There's a beautiful saying in English, beauty lies in the eye of the beholder. So true. Must have been an English Arahatun Mahansi who once said that. It is so true. Why do they say that? Why do they say beauty lies in the eye of the beholder? Because beauty does not lie in the outside object. You see now, you would have come across that expression in the past and you thought, oh, beauty lies in the eye, yeah, okay, so what? But now you get why that is the case, right? Because you understand that what is it that we call beauty? The Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana that we create inside our own minds. This castle that we build within our own minds. And then we compare that to our models that we've been updating forever. And as soon as we say, yes, those two, what I have now been able to build, this castle that I have now been able to build, using the nutriment, the ahara, that I got from the outside world, this matches the castle, the blueprint that I built for myself. And this is why I say I am the architect of my own suffering. I drew the architectural diagrams. Through Sankara, I drew my own architectural diagrams. I drew the blueprint for this castle. And now I have a castle to which I compare the castle that I am able to build using the bricks that each of you are able to give me. And as soon as I build this castle, how long does it take me to build that castle? When I do, the time it takes me to do that, I've built 1,000, 100,000 castles. Why? Each chitta, each thought that arises, I've built a castle. And each castle, I compare the castle that for which I have a model in my mind. And now this comparison goes on. When there's a match, I go, I love you. I say, I love you. When there's no match, I say, I don't like you. I despise you. I hate you. Go away. I don't like you. So what happens is from time to time, the blocks that start coming my way, they are not what they used to be. They don't make blocks like they used to. I mean, that's quite true literally as well, right? These building materials, as you'll know, perhaps some of you are in construction, or you might have built your own homes recently or done some work. You know that the materials that they used to use back in the day were in a much better condition than the materials that they use now. Everything's cheaper, right? And everything's in poorer condition than they used to be. So likewise, what happens is, over time, this person that I said I was in love with is not able to supply these blocks in the same quality, with the same quality. Now they have holes within them. Now they are so brittle. Now they don't have the same kind of strength to them. When you chip at them, they start breaking up. One splash of water and they start dissolving. So they're of a much poorer quality. So what happens now is I use the same bricks, but my blueprint hasn't changed. My architectural drawings haven't changed. So I still keep building this castle. How long does it take me to build this castle? One chitta. I keep building this castle, but every time I build this castle, now I'm saying, hey, they don't match. I no longer want to be the king of this castle. Now I have to go looking for another castle to be the king of. So to build another castle, I don't decide to change my architectural drawings. I don't decide to get myself a new blueprint. What I decide to do is, let me go find a new supplier who can give me a better building block. So now I go looking for another person. So I said, I was speaking to those monks and I said, when you have those feelings, and it's quite possible that it happens perhaps when they go out. Or sometimes, even in the monastery, sometimes, people might come and they don't, sometimes not everyone dresses appropriately when they come into the monastery, right? And these things happen. But, never point the finger at the outside world. That's not where the problem is. I should be wise enough. I should be clever enough. I should be able to develop my mind enough so that even if someone walks in naked, that doesn't make any difference to me. Am I wrong? Aren't I right? Yes. If that ignites the fire of raga within me, where is the problem? Outside or inside? Inside. But as you know, in some religions, what they do is they cover the outside person. Don't they do that? You cover the outside person, head to toe, so it doesn't ignite the fire of desire within the man. So now what are they doing? They're pointing the finger outside. The Buddha never said that was the way to do it. He said, no. The problem's not outside, the problem's inside. See? What a great doctrine we've got for ourselves. Imagine, ladies and gentlemen, if there was nothing in this world that could upset you, nothing in this world that could unsettle you, nothing in this world that can send you into a state of mental torment, mental agitation, mental stress, anxiety, frustration. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. How would that make you feel? My heart just goes into rapture just thinking about that. What a state that must be. What a state of composure. What a state of calmness and stillness that must be. Nothing in the world can upset and take away my happiness. Only the Buddha's ministry can offer us that. That's why whether you're a peasant or a minister or a king, no matter who you are, no matter what your status is, no matter how powerful you are, no matter how much wealth you have, no matter how many children you have, how much money or properties you have, if you want to find that kind of state of mind, where it's not relief from suffering that you're looking for, but rather redemption from that state of vexation, then it's only the Buddha's doctrine that can help you with that. Nothing else. There is nothing on this planet that can answer that problem in a better way. In this world of Maras, Devas, Brahmas, Brahmins, humans, there is no one that has found a better solution to that problem than the perfect one himself. You see, that gift is priceless, is it not, don't you think? How powerful would you feel then? Nothing can. You see, sometimes some monks come and tell me, Swami Mahansa, as a layman, I used to chew on betel leaves. And it's a habit I'm trying to give up, but I find it so difficult. What do I do? And I say, think about it. What is it that this betel leaf, really, if you were to think about it, You must have seen on TV sometimes, where they have wrestling, right, on TV. I used to watch them as a teenager, wrestling. And sometimes you play these games, knockout, and you have this guy versus that guy. So I say, why don't you imagine you versus a beetle leaf? We telecast a TV program. There's you on one side, 6 foot high, a tall, well-built man, right? With nothing to say, I haven't got. You're well endowed. You've got everything you need. Versus a beetle leaf. How would you feel? Something so pesky as this? To say, I succumb, I surrender to you, to a beetle leaf? Some come and say, Swami wants a chocolate. I find it difficult to overcome the urge. How do I fight? And I say, well, you on one side and a piece of chocolate on the other. You versus a piece of chocolate. How does that make you feel? Don't you feel ashamed? Don't you feel so small? You think you're the best. You think you're the greatest. You think you're the ruler of the world. But when it comes to a bit of chocolate, when it comes to a piece of beetle leaf, you surrender like a dog. Come on, man. Look at what it is you're saying. And they understand, yes, I realize how shameless that is for me to come and say, I can't overcome something so tiny, so minuscule, something so insignificant, like a piece of beetle leaf. And I then say, okay, so you get that, this is harayati, lajjasagatai. Anicca, dukkha, the meanings of anicca. Attiyati, harayati, jigucchati. Right? Harayati. Shameless. Shameful rather. And I say, well, again, think about what is it that you look from this beetle leaf? What is it that you yearn so much from this? Why do you give this thing value? It's not your body that's addicted to it. It's your mind that's addicted to it. I mean, how do we know whether it's mind or body that's addicted to things? When people break free from their addictions, what changes? Mind or body? It's the mind. Do they get given a new body? No, they keep the same bodies. Whether it's cigarettes, alcohol, beetle leaf, chocolate, whatever the case might be. When people break free from addictions, it's the same body, but the mind is changed. The mind is transformed. So I asked them, what is it that you look for in this beetle leaf? All your mind needs is Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. And this beetle leaf is readily able to provide that to you. So as soon as you want to relieve yourself, as soon as you have attached yourself to that 5, pahe ellim. As soon as you've attached yourself to that 5, as soon as you are now clinging on to that 5, now you'll stop at nothing to gain that. So now you go from that state of pelima, that state of vexation, you go into attachment. From attachment you jump to attachment. Attachment to attachment. That's what happens. From one to the other. This is why I say it's a vicious circle. You can't break through from it. See, what happens when you come across a Kalyana Mitra is you're in a state of vexation. This is what happens normally, right? Vexation, which is the pelima, right? Because you've attached yourself to something. To relieve yourself from that suffering, to relieve yourself from that mental torment, what you do is you go and grasp onto something, you go and cling onto something in the hope that it's going to relieve yourself from that pain. So you jump onto this. And once you've gotten hold of whatever that object or person or whatever that thing might be, because it's also conditioned, the conditions change. And as soon as the conditions change, now you're in another state of suffering. So because you're now in another state of suffering, you have now got to go back into a state of attachment. Why? Because you want to relieve yourself from that suffering as well. You know, say you start at 1, or you start from 0. Okay, let's say we all start on a clean slate, 0. We begin to value something in this world. As soon as you valued something in this world, now you want it. I mean, isn't that how you've acquired all the things you have acquired by now? I mean, think about the watch that's on your wrist right now. Someone gave it value. It would have been perhaps the people that you associated, or perhaps you read an advert on a TV, or you watched it on, or you read it on a magazine, whatever the case might be, right? Whether it's your shoes, your watch, or your glasses, your haircut, whatever the case might be, someone gave it value. And when you associated those people who gave that value, you began to give it value yourself, because you're in that association. Like things cling together. You know, birds of a feather, they start to flock together. Right? When you have the same things that you like to attach, you now come together. So what happens is, as soon as now you start giving value to that object, now you want it. That feeling of wanting, that yearning, that needing, that desire is a negative feeling. That's that feeling of vexation, which now you want to relieve yourself from. So to relieve yourself from that feeling of vexation, what you do is you somehow find a way to go and acquire that. Kaya sankara, vachi sankara, mano abhisankara. Through the process of this abhisankara, you go and acquire it. But what you have acquired ultimately also leads to what? Is subject to what? Disease, decay, and death. As soon as that goes to disease, decay, and death, now what does that do to you? Again, back to suffering. So to relieve yourself from that suffering, what do? You go and attach again to another one, and then to another one, and then to another one. See, you started from 0 suffering. You went on to 1 suffering. Why? I want that. As soon as you went into suffering 1, then you went and attached to it. Now you have to protect it, you have to preserve it, you have to preserve it and protect it from robbers, from fire, from winds, from water, right? All of that pain comes with the package, which I think we've discussed in the past, right? When we played that game of giving scores, 7-0, 6-1, okay? So all of that suffering comes with the package. You started with 0, but where do you end? You end in a worse state than you began. And see, here's the other thing. When you get into a state of mind where you really want to acquire whatever it is that you desire, if you are not a sotapanna, you are prepared to do whatever it takes. Whatever it takes, I am prepared to do. And that whatever could be the 10 unmeritorious deeds. So you keep engaging, and sometimes you then become inclined to do the unmeritorious deeds, which take you further down. What is this down now I'm speaking of? To the hells. Keeps taking you down with every step you take. See, attachment never got you up there. Attachment always keeps taking you down. So attachment is not the answer to the problem then. Yes, we feel that vexation, we feel that pelima. I don't disagree with that. But the answer to that is not going and attaching yourself to something that's going to relieve yourself from that. It's like when you feel like you want to watch TV, the answer to that problem is not going and turning on the TV and watching it. That's what I'm trying to say, in really simple terms. When you feel like I'd really wish I could have pizza tonight for dinner, the answer to that, if you really are, if you're a clever one, if you're wise, if you're intelligent, the answer to that problem is not treating yourself to pizza. That's not the answer to the problem. That anyone can do. You don't need to be a disciple of the Buddha to do that. When you feel it difficult for you, I say, yeah, it was really difficult for me. And he says, would you care to explain, Swami Wahansa? Perhaps I can help. I said, yeah, of course. I had money problems in that I had so much money, but still it didn't solve the real problem that I had. It didn't put me out of suffering. I could associate with all the women that I wanted, but that still didn't put an end to my suffering. I ate so many different types of food that perhaps even you might not have tried by this point in life, but that never put an end to my suffering. So this is why, sir, I say, I ordained because I had money problems, I had women problems, and I had food problems. Can you help? He says, no, I wasn't expecting that answer. He said, well, it's because you can't help. I went to someone who could help me. Because he taught me that the answer to these problems is not going after more. Sir, please can I have some more is not the answer to the problem. That's not the answer to the problem. Because the answer or the problem lies in attachment. Avidya and tanha. So, going back to that vicious circle. When you feel that vexation, and now you're going to attach yourself to something that you want, that you believe is going to relieve yourself from suffering. Why? Because of ignorance. Ignorance teaches us, if you're suffering, go and attach yourself. And you're going like this, you're just going to jump and attach this. At that time you come across a Kalyana Mitra, Satpurusha, a noble person who says, no, that's not the answer to the problem. Stop. As soon as you attach yourself to that, what's going to happen is you're going to be subject to even more mental torture, agitation, frustration, vexation. He or she explains to you, be that lay or a monk or clergy, it doesn't matter. You could do that to your friends now. You know, when you see your friends trying to, when they're in a state of mental stress, right? I'm sure lots of you will associate with people either at the workplace or friends, family, right? They come and say, Machang, I'm in a lot of stress these days. What do I have to do? What can I do? The other day someone forwarded this article on to me. I think it was one of our listeners who said I should speak. He asked me to speak, or he asked me rather to try and give this Dhamma to the as much as possible to the Western world. Because apparently this assisted suicide is becoming, it's trending now. Euthanasia. It's now, apparently there was recently an article where there was this woman that went through that procedure, and it's become a bit of a talking point for everybody. And so someone read that article and gave me the summary, and he said, that lady was in a state of mental distress, I think age 29 or something like that. A lot of mental stress, depression. And he said, the reason for this depression was, apparently she was always in this state of, people don't like me, they don't speak to me nicely, my family doesn't treat me well, at my workplace I have these problems. Excuse me. So how do I find satisfaction in life? How do I find fulfillment in life? And I'm sure you will have people come to you and speak to you about these problems. It could be your colleagues, it could be people that work for you. It could be people that you work for. Imagine you had a really terrible boss. Okay? For some of you, you might not even have to imagine. This might be reality. A terrible boss who's always on your neck. Do this, do that, right? And he or she is always under a lot of stress. And that stress he keeps feeding on to you. What if you could go and give him or her some Dhamma? Says, I realize you're in a lot of stress these days, and I want to try and help you as much as I possibly can. Why don't you listen to this sermon when you get some time, on your way back home? He begins to listen. He begins to understand that this stress that we create is all stuff we do ourselves within our own minds. Stress is not something that comes to us from the outside world. How can you stress a Rahatan Mahansa? Tell me. How could you stress out a Rahatan Mahansa? What's the formula for that? There is no such formula. So stress does not exist in the outside world then. Clearly. 100%. Stress is purely an internal fabrication. It's an internal formation. We create our own stresses and strains. Once you realize you're the architect, of your own stress, of your own pain, of your own discomfort, then you begin to realize, hey, why do I treat myself like this? You know, you don't like other people coming and hurting you, harming you, but when you realize, I'm doing the greatest harm to myself, now you're going to want to change that soon, aren't you? You're going to want to change that behavior. So then you're going to begin to analyze, why is it that I go through this pain? Why do I put myself through this? And then you realize it's because of attachment. I'm attached to so and so. I'm attached to these things. I mean, I can still fulfill my duties. I can still do my job. I can still go through my responsibilities and do all that. But without the mental attachment. People don't judge you, ladies and gentlemen. I think I said this to explain this to you last week. People don't judge you by your thoughts, do they? Tell me, do they? Can they read your thoughts? No. What do people judge you by? Your actions and your words. So it doesn't matter what you think. As long as you can portray yourself in a certain way, through speech and through body, in a way that the people that you interact with are happy to perceive you, then everyone's happy. But the suffering that you go through is all internal. That's in your mind. So you could pacify your mind, you could calm down your mind, but outwardly, you know, you could be really busy. Outwardly, you can look like the busiest man ever, but inside, you're really cool and calm like a cucumber. I used to do this at my workplace. When I began to listen to the Dhamma, I realized, you know, this pressure, this stress that I was creating was all a function of my own ignorance. And I changed the way that I worked. But in the 4 years that I got to listen to this Dhamma and change my life according to it, I made so much success at work. In fact, my boss told me that in the last year, the year before I left work, he'd been working at the bank for 15 years, I think 16 years now. He said, I haven't seen anyone go through as many promotions as you've done in 1 year at work in this entire bank. I had 4 promotions in the same year, with each a jump in at least 5-fold. So imagine that. But inside, I was so cool. On the outside, I was going through work like no one's ever seen before. Because I realize this pain that I create, I do internally in my own mind. You know, sometimes we have problems, right? Even at the monastery. Right? Sometimes we get calls from the outside and say, hey, you know, there's a sermon that you're going to be doing. We don't like that. You know, we want you to cancel this. Blah, 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 blah. Right? We get all sorts of things. And even my Guru Swami Maharaj, sometimes, you know, they organize these sermons and people call up and they come up with all sorts of problems. But thanks to the Dhamma, we are now able to face those problems without getting into any mental stress. Ever felt that time when, you know, someone, particularly if it's your boss, or if it's a difficult customer, right? You know, I want to relate to this into your personal lives, because I want this to be practical for you all. You know, if it's a difficult customer, you don't want to approach them. Why? Because you create all this, what if he says this, what if he says that, what if he doesn't like to hear what I'm going to say? Whether it's your review meetings with your managers, okay, you create this mental stress inside of you and then you go into that meeting really stressed out. What if you were able to just be cool and calm? Have that conversation, but not be disturbed, not be perturbed inside your mind. See, that's what the Dhamma is able to offer you. Are you ready to accept it? This is free, by the way. We don't charge you for this seminar. It's free. How much have I ever charged you for being here? If I were to charge you, how much do you think I could charge you? Think about it. But the gift, the Buddha's Dhamma is priceless. You couldn't put a price on it. You know, you have this gift, ladies and gentlemen, you know, laid out bare in front of you. You know, you are so blessed. You are so extremely fortunate to be here today, to have been born human, to have received the Dhamma, to have the noble associations that you do, to have been born into a family, at least nominally, who call themselves Buddhists. I mean, it's thanks to that you've now found this way here, right? What if you were born into a non-Buddhist family? Perhaps you might have still come along, but there's always that restriction. There's always that friction that you have to overcome before you can jump that. So you're really blessed, incredibly fortunate. This gift has been laid bare in front of you, at your feet. All you have to do is pick it up and find this gem. This is why it's called the Noble Triple Gem. The luster of this gem is so deep, it blinds all ignorance. Its shine is greater than all the suns and all the stars. You have the greatest gift of all of humanity. All of mankind has not had the gift that you have today. What if you were born a Deva? What if I were born a Deva? I couldn't be in a robe today. It's only as a human being I have this opportunity to be so close to the Buddha. I mean, through this robe, I have this link. I'm connected to the Buddha. But if I were born a Deva, I wouldn't have this opportunity. If I were born a Brahma, I wouldn't have this opportunity. But you can. As human beings, you can. And it doesn't matter whether you're in robes or you're in lay clothes. It doesn't matter, because like I said last week, you know, first, don robes on your mind, not your body. For that, there's no age limit. For that, it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman, how tall or short you are, how thin or stout you are. It really doesn't matter. This is the gift of Dhamma that the Buddha gave us, that the great elders Sariputta and Moggallana worked so hard for, to attain and pass down to us, which now we have, a way to redeem ourselves from suffering once and for all. And all we need to do is realize that attachment is the root for all of this suffering, nothing else. Go and speak to your friends at work, ask them, Machan, why do you suffer? Really, do this as an experiment. Go speak to your friends and ask them, why do you suffer? At school, go and ask your friends, every time you've suffered, why have you suffered? What are they going to say? Because I lost my mother, because I lost my father, because I got into an accident and my car is now beyond repair, because I lost my money, because I lost my house, I lost this, I lost that. Always pointing the finger at the outside world. But I ask you today, why do you suffer? And you give me the perfect answer. The only true answer that exists in this world. And you tell me that's because of the attachment that I have to the things that I lost. If there were no attachment, it wouldn't make any difference to me. See, even at the point of becoming a Rahatun, let me explain something to you and then I'll ask you a question. We go through this process of giving rise to the Panchaskandha, Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana, right? These are the 5 building blocks that create the thoughts that arise within our minds, okay? So, Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. And the reason that we give rise to each one of these is because we are in a state of suffering. Remember I said self-preservation? We're all so interested in self-preservation. We can't bear the pain of the self passing away, and therefore we give rise to another self. Where does the self live? Is the self real? What do you think? Is the self real? No. The self is not real. The self is something we fabricated. The self is something that manifests within this process of thoughts that arise and pass away. Okay, so I'm just coming back to the basics, and I'm summarizing all of this. So listen carefully. The self exists in this process of the thoughts arising and passing away. It's like a sine wave, right? It goes like that. Thoughts arise and passing away. This process happens based on a foundation of ignorance. This foundation is ignorance. On this foundation there are tilts that keep this process in place. It's like imagine a clothesline that have tilts that keep this clothesline up from point to point, okay? But this clothesline does not need the support of these tilts. But through ignorance we come to this conclusion that no, it's actually we need this self that has to be there to keep these thoughts in place. So this thought process keeps going along. Now, because this mind is interested in nothing other than Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana, and that's what it's clinging on to. And because it's clinging on to that, that's where it looks for happiness and pleasure and satisfaction. For self-preservation, the mind has to go looking for objects, people, incidents, as in the nutriment that it takes from the outside world to give rise to the Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana that it is able to arise, give rise to within the mind. Okay? Using the outside object, it gives rise to the Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana within the mind. So this is all internal stuff we are talking about. But to give rise to the internal stuff, you need the outside stuff. And the outside stuff we take in through what? The eyes, the nose, the ears. So through our 5 senses. And the 6th sense, which is the mind. So using our 6 senses, we take the outside objects, the outside stuff, and we create the inside stuff, which is the Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. Because the self is something that is nurtured with every thought that arises, and we are so attached to this self, like the mother to that baby, whom the mother can't bear to see a baby die, pass away, so the mother is so interested, she has a vested interest in keeping this baby alive. Likewise, the mind wants to keep this self alive. And the self can only be given life if Rupa says what? If you're now suffering because you can't bear the pain of passing away, give rise to another chitta through which the self will be born again. That's what ignorance tells us. But that next chitta which is born is the Arahat Palasita. And with that chitta that arises, all ignorance and attachment is eradicated. Now that chitta which arises is no longer on a foundation of ignorance, is no longer using stilts to keep the thought process alive. This is now just running like a vehicle put into neutral through the vipaka. And that just keeps going until the last moment that this person is alive and then enters parinibbana. So, I was going to ask you a question. Chittas arise, pass away. Even at the last moment, when an Arahat Marga person becomes an Arahat Pala, a chitta arises, a chitta passes away. And then that chitta that is given rise to, which becomes the Arahat Palasita, is also the process, or is also the product of Abhisankara. So the question I have for you is, at which point does a being completely remove the notion of a self? At which point? At which point? Arahat Vichitta. Arahat Palachitta. It's at the point of an Arahat Palachitta, the notion of a self completely goes away. At the point someone becomes a Sotapanna, your view is clarified, your view is rectified. Up until the point of becoming a Sotapanna, you believe that there's a self. And this self, remember that's the baby, right? The baby Natasha we've spoken about in the past. So when that mother receives treatment, slowly she begins to realize, after the first few doses, there really isn't a baby. But from time to time, that notion still keeps coming back. It's like those dogs that keep coming back as you keep chasing them. But at one point, when this Arahat Margasita enters into the Arahat Palasita, the self is completely gone, eradicated. Why? Because if those stilts are what we call self, they have to be bound, they have to be based on a foundation of what? Ignorance. Ignorance is completely eradicated. This is why when someone becomes an Arahatun Nuhanse, that's the point at which the last of the fetters, the Sanyojana, are removed. Kamaraga, Ruparaga, or rather Ruparaga, Aruparaga, Mana, Uddacha, Avidya. See, Avidya. Avidya and Mana, they go out at once, together. Mana is the state of comparison. Maninama. You're always comparing. You have to have someone to compare to. You know, one guy says she's pretty. You've got to ask the question. Compared to whom? Haven't you? One guy says, oh, he's tall, isn't he? Have you not got to ask the question, compared to what or compared to whom? Isn't tall and short comparative? Otherwise I could say, I'm tall. I could say, I'm short. I could say anything, but you've got to ask the question, compared to something's big, something small. These are all comparative terms. So mana is that nature of comparing always. There's Uchamana, Sadisamana, and Hinamana, which is comparing and coming to the conclusion that something's better than the self, as in myself. Something's my equal, something's below. So these are all these models that we've created. The model of myself to which I compare everything else in this world. And that only goes away at the point of becoming an Arahatun Hanse. At the point at which ignorance is completely uprooted. And at that point self goes away. Your attachment, your clinging to Rupas goes away. Your clinging to the Arupas go away. And at that point you're a completely free person. Free from all defilements. Free from all cankers. Free from all types of vexation. All mental frustrations. And that day you become victorious. Free. You have swum to the other side of the sea. You are now on the shore. And now none of these sharks can come and get you. You're free. Free once and for all. So, see, time and time we keep coming back to this. Because this is the crux of it, really. This is the crux of it. We could talk about lots of other things, but this is the crux of it. The reason you are here today is because you experience suffering. You're not here for anything else. I know that. Why did you first come to listen to these sermons? Because you were still trying to figure out something, weren't you? I've been going through all this in my life. I've earned a lot of money. I've got a lot of property. I've got children. I've got this, that and the other. But still I go through suffering. I go through pain. I want to redeem myself from that. Now we've found the real answer. We've found the cause behind it. And that is this attachment. So really, the only thing we really need to talk about is continuously making sure that our understanding is founded, our understanding is solid in that, and that we complete and we clearly understand how do we uproot this attachment, slowly but steadily. And over time and eventually it's going to happen. All we have to do is make sure that we continue to keep tugging at it. One day it's going to come loose, but we have to keep tugging at it. Don't let go. One day it's going to come loose. And that day you're going to uproot it once and for all. And then you're going to be free. Keep that determination in mind, ladies and gentlemen. Don't let anyone throw you off. Don't let anyone put you off. You don't have to come here for these sermons. You can go to any other temple or other monks or whoever is able to teach you, whoever is able to show you how to redeem yourself from suffering. It doesn't matter who it is. Whether it's a lay person or a clergy, it doesn't matter. Put yourself out of suffering. That's all I'm asking you for. Not me. Don't worry about me. That because I have to do for myself. He's got to do for himself. They've got to do it for themselves. And you've got to do it for yourself. No one else can do it for you. You've got to do it for yourself. Because otherwise, it will be a waste having come into this world as humans. Because you see, really otherwise, the likes of Jesus Christ, Prophet Muhammad, the gods, the Hindu gods, Shiva, and so forth. They all give to this world a doctrine which helps people do good, which helps people go into the heavens, ascend into the heavens. And if you really think about it, a lot of Muslim people, Islamic people, they who follow Islam, Muslim people who follow Islam, they live a very good life. They live a very religious life. Some of them, they go to the mosque once or 5 times a day. How many times do you go to the mosque, or rather to the temple? They do more merit than you do. Really. Think about it. Okay, if not you, now you've been listening to these sermons for a long time. The gift of dana you give, which is the dana that exceeds all other gifts. Okay? And you listen to the Dhamma, which is a hugely meritorious deed. And perhaps you also maybe preach to other people, your friends, as you're able to, which is again a hugely meritorious deed. And now when you give alms, you know the meaning behind it, why you do it, right? They're all meritorious deeds. But think about a lot of your family, perhaps your friends, who don't understand any of this Dhamma. Don't you really think they would have been better born Muslims or Christians or Hindus? Think about it. They give this excuse, I'm a Buddhist, so I don't need to go to the mosque, I don't need to go to the temple. The Buddha never said come to the temple. He said, just live a good life, so I'm living a good life. But really, if you think about it, Christians, they do more merit than you and I do. They do more merit than the general Buddhist. On a Sunday they go into church dressed in their finest, and then they go and speak to the Father in the church, and they go and talk to them about the sins that they've done. When was the last time you went and approached a monk and said, Swami Mahansa, these are the sins that I did in the last week. Please, can you help me? When was the last time you did that? See? If you don't make use of the Buddha's Dhamma, don't you really think it would have been better if you'd been born Christians, into a Christian family? Think about Hindus. How many times they go to the Kovil, to the Devalaya, and they make offerings. Some of them, they go every day before work, they stop in front of the Kovil. They get out of their cars, they go and make an offering. Whatever it might be, or they go and pray to their gods. And every time they pray, that's all ping, that's all merits. All of that is merits. And these merits perhaps will one day help them be born in the Deva worlds. A lot of Muslim people, they lead a greatly more meritorious life than a lot of Buddhist people today. So if you don't make use of the Buddha's Dhamma to take what it is that he gave, to take what it is that he worked so hard for, which is Nibbana, if you don't take the crux of it, then you might as well have been born into another religion. Really. Because what followers of other religions don't have is not the path to heaven. Every other religion teaches a path to heaven. If that is all you're going to take from Buddhism as well, what's the point? But think about a lot of people, what do they use Buddhism for these days? Go to the temple, offer flowers, right? Give dana. Now all of these are good. But what I'm saying is, what they're doing is the same as what a lot of non-Buddhist people do. And that's a real pity. That's a real shame. Because that's not what the Buddha worked so hard for. Not to show you a path to heaven. In fact, what did the Buddha say about heaven? It's pointless. Pointless going there. Even there you're going to go and you're going to fall into indulge in sensuality. And again you're going to go back into the abhayas. What's the point? Use the Dhamma to attain Nibbana. No other religion can give you that. So don't you think you're so blessed? Think about it. If you are all the people in this vicinity who listen to this Dhamma, don't you think that at this point in time, from 2:30 every Sunday afternoon to about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the evening, the most blessed people in this locality come together under this roof? Don't you think so? Isn't this a convocation of all the most blessed people in the vicinity? People who listen to the Dhamma that helps them to attain Nibbana? No one else is able to do that. That's how fortunate you are. So spread this word. Spread the word of Dhamma to those who need it. Don't go giving it by force. Hey, I've got a CD, listen to it. I'm not interested. No, you must listen to it. No, I'm not interested. No, you really must. Don't do that. Because then you become a pain in the backside. And then people are going to offend you. And then they're going to do Aryapada. Not knowing. See, knowingly or unknowingly. This is why at the start of sermons we always seek forgiveness for Aryapadas. Some of you may have become Aryas by now. At least you will probably be on the path to becoming a Sotapan if you haven't become a Sotapan already. So, at least through mercy for other people that you associate in society, don't give them the opportunity to offend you. Don't give them the opportunity to insult you because they are committing an Aryapada. Now, please don't come and ask me individually, am I a Sotapan? Because I can't give you that. I can't give you a certificate to say that. It's only the Buddha can give you that. But in the past, I've explained to you how is it that you may be able to ascertain if you are a Sotapan or not. So you can go back and listen to previous sermons that we've done in the past. Either way, make that your primary goal. And every time we meet, I'm going to spend at least a few minutes to remind you why is it that has to be your primary goal. So I said at the beginning of this sermon, are you here to stay or are you here to go? Or are you here to stay so you can learn how to go? You're welcome to come and stay, but for only as long as you learn how to go and then not come back again. To go from what? Samsara. Once and forever. Once you've learned how to do it, go and give that gift to other people. You don't have to keep coming back here. Seriously. I have no interest in growing a number of followers behind me. If none of you really came here, I wouldn't have to be here today. Doctor's orders were don't leave the monastery for 5 days at least. That were the doctor's orders. So I went to the hospital 2 days ago and that was the doctor said, do not leave the monastery for at least 5 days. Otherwise you'll probably get worse. I said, I can't do it because I've made a solemn promise. I've made a promise to you all that I will be here. Even if there's one person here, I'll be here to help you. So I said, sorry, that 5 days will have to start from tomorrow morning. So I have no interest in growing a large population of listeners. I have no interest in doing that. Because I'm not here to attach to anybody. I want to eradicate the attachment that I have, because I understand that it's because of attachment that I'm suffering. I don't want a collection of followers, and I don't want any of the fame or fortune or whatever that comes. Right? Before long, people will start saying, the English Bana monk. People will start putting labels. That monk who delivers sermons in English. I just want to go. And I hope that's what you want to do as well. So make sure that that is your primary goal. Because I can't guarantee if I'm going to be here tomorrow, next week. You have no guarantee. You don't know how near those sharks are to you, those man-eating sharks. And the point that they reach you, they have no mercy. They are voracious animals. They're going to tear you up. They're going to eat you up. They're not going to leave one bone behind. All of you eaten up. Before that day comes, strive to go, to get to the shore, to become victorious. Okay. There's another sermon after this, so I have to leave in a moment. But before that, let's take a moment to do the Arya Maitri Bhavana. I think we did it in English last week, is it? Yes, okay. So for our listeners online, a couple of weeks ago we decided that we would chant the Arya Maitri Bhavana alternatively, alternatively in English and in Sinhala. So every other week it will be in English, every alternating week it will be in Sinhala. Mamada siyalu loka siyalu satvayo sansara dahayen midetva sansara rogayen midetva sansara ginnen midetva sansara anduren midetva nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita tarvetva nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita tarvetva nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita tarvetva mamada siyalu loka siyalu satvayo raga bandhanayen midetva desha bandhanayen midetva moha bandhanayen midetva Mara bandhanayen midetva nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita tarvetva nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita tarvetva nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita tarvetva mamada siyalu loka siyalu satvayo jati ginnen midetva jara ginnen midetva vyadhi ginnen midetva marana ginnen midetva nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita tarvetva nibbana parama sukhayen සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා මමද සියලු ලෝක සියලු සත්වයෝ ශෝක ගින්නෙන් මිදෙත්වා පරිදේවයෙන් මිදෙත්වා දුක්ඛ ගින්නෙන් මිදෙත්වා දෝමනස්සයෙන් මිදෙත්වා උපායාසයෙන් මිදෙත්වා යම්පිච්ඡං ලබති තම්පි දුක්ඛයෙන් මිදෙත්වා සංඛිත්තේන පංචෝපාදානස්කන්ධයෙන් මිදෙත්වා නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා කාම ලෝක අනාතයි එයින් මිදෙත්වා රූප ලෝක අනාතයි එයින් මිදෙත්වා අරූප ලෝක අනාතයි එයින් මිදෙත්වා සියලු ලෝක අනාතයි එයින් මිදෙත්වා අතහැරීම නාතයි අතහැරීම වෙත්වා නිවීම නාතයි නිවීම වෙත්වා නොඇල්ම නාතයි නොඇල්ම වෙත්වා මිදීම නාතයි මිදීම වෙත්වා නිවනම නාතයි නිවනම 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 වෙත්වා. If I were to ask you how many of you do the RMI3 at home, I'm not going to ask you to put your arms up. See if you can answer yes to that question. Ask yourself. There's a reason why we encourage you to do this. Throughout our journey in samsara, as we always say at the start, our associations have not been with good people. It's been with ignoble, immoral people. And when we were defiled with raga, dvesha, moha, we must have done so much bad to other people. I mean, think about this life itself. When you had no understanding of the Dhamma, were you always kind to other people? Were you always good to other people? Were you always generous to other people? All those deeds that we've done, either through mind, speech or body, they have vipakas. And they come back to bite us. And sometimes the Aryapadas, they keep coming back. Practicing the Arya Maitreya is the best way to seek forgiveness for that. to change the samanantaras so that those anantaras don't have the opportunity to bear fruit. And remember this samanantara, anantara we've explained in the past. Samanantara is like the field. If you have a field that is prime, then when there are seeds, those seeds are able to bear fruit. Those seeds are able to germinate in the soil. So what we are doing is to try and change the samanantara so that those seeds, those karmas that we've done in the past do not attract themselves when we try to develop the Arya Marga. So put some time aside every day if you can. The first thing I do when I wake up in the morning, as I've said to you in the past, I bring my arms together, I worship the Buddha, I chant the Arya Maitri in my mind, you don't have to say it out loud, and then I seek forgiveness from all the Aryas in the past that I might have done, caused harm, slandered, abused. That's how I start my day and that's how I finish my day. And then as I walk up and down at the monastery, I do this. I'm not talking about walking meditation. I might be going somewhere else, walking to the kitchen, walking to the meditation hall, wherever. As I walk, I practice the Arya Maitri. So this you can do as well. Find time, ladies and gentlemen. If there are things you want to do, you will find the time to do it. There is never a problem of time. We all have the same time. We all have 24 hours. None of us have more or less. The things that happen within those 24 hours are the things that you give priority to. That's the truth. So ask yourselves, what things do you give priority to? And then choose wisely. Because this time that's passing by, you can never get back. Never. Okay. So prior to us finishing the sermon, let us take a moment, or concluding the sermon, let us take a moment to transfer the merits that we have all acquired today to those who deserve the merits. Siradinama sadhukara dinna. First and foremost, let us take a moment to reflect once again, as we did at the beginning, on the fact that it is the Lord Buddha's Dhamma today that we have this opportunity to listen to understand, to comprehend, and that is our path to salvation, that is the boat on which we can seek refuge to cross this ocean of samsara. And also all his disciples, the Bhikkhu Bhikkhunis, Upasaka Upasikas, who dedicated their lives, who sacrificed their lives to preserving and protecting the Dhamma. It is thanks to them that we today have this gift of Dhamma that has been passed down through the generations. So may all those Bhikkhu Bhikkhunis, Upasaka Upasikas who dedicated and sacrificed their lives towards this worthy cause be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. If they have been born in the woeful plane, may these merits help them be born in the blissful plane, and may these, through the power that we have generated through these merits, may they be able to fulfill the meritorious deeds, abstain, refrain from the unmeritorious deeds, and fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and in doing so attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Also take a moment to transfer these merits to all those Bhikkhu Bhikkhunis, Upasaka Upasikas, as well as the members of the Mahasangha, the Mahanayakas, the Anunayakas, who reside all over this world. Anyone and everyone who strive day and night to fulfilling the path, to redeeming themselves, as well as giving the gift of Dhamma to all other sentient beings. This includes all of you as well. So may all those beings rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. May these merits help them all to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana in this very birth itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Also please take a moment to transfer the merits that we have all acquired today to the Devas and Brahmas that we have invited before the start of this sermon. The Devas, Brahmas, spirits, demons and the dead, as well as anyone who might have been a relation of yours in the past, parents, or perhaps even in this birth's parents, grandparents, children, uncles, aunts, sisters, brothers, nephews and so on, anyone who might have offered you any kind of help, support or assistance, either in this birth or in the past births, anyone and everyone who are looking for these merits in your name to rejoice in them, may they all rejoice in these merits. May these merits help them be born in the blissful plane, if any of them have been born in the woeful plane. May these merits help them abstain from the unwholesome deeds. May these merits help them fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Also, please take a moment to transfer these merits to the chief incumbent monk of this temple, the Siri Alan Mathiniyaramaya, as well as the Uduve Dhammaloka Nayaka Swamin Wahansa, as well as all the other monks who are resident in this temple, as well as the novice monks who are resident in this temple. And also take a moment to transfer these merits to all the monks and the Samanera monks who live and strive day and night to fulfill the path in your local villages, in your local towns. Although we come along and we deliver these sermons, ladies and gentlemen, please bear in mind that it is them who take the trouble, who have put themselves forward to help in your day-to-day lives. It is thanks to them that your children have the opportunity to attend the Hampas. It is thanks to them that you have the opportunity to transfer merits to your, your dear loved ones as and when they pass away. So it is them who put aside time from the little time that they have left to practice the Noble Eightfold Path, who have set time aside to dedicate their lives to your needs and wants. So make sure that we take the time to transfer merits to all those monks, as well as nuns who may be available and are ready to offer those services to you. So may they all rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today, and may those merits help them all to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana in this very birth itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Also take a moment to reflect on the fact that it is thanks to all the members of the armed forces who sacrificed their lives while there was a war in this country for a very long period of time. It is thanks to them today that we have a peaceful country in which we can practice the path, we can practice the Dhamma. It is because they sacrificed their lives we have our motherland today to live in safely and soundly, and also to practice the path. So may they all also rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today, as well as those members of the police force who sacrificed their lives, as well as any beings, be they friends or foes, who might have sacrificed their lives back in that time. May anyone who's looking for merits be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. May these merits help them abstain from the unwholesome deeds. May these merits help them fulfill the meritorious deeds and fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and in doing so attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Also take a moment to transfer merits to anyone who might have been destroyed in the natural calamities such as the tsunamis that hit our country back in the past, as well as earthquakes and so forth that happen all throughout the world. Anyone who's looking for merits be able to rejoice in these merits. May they all rejoice in these merits. May these merits help them abstain from the unwholesome deeds. May these merits help them fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Also please take a moment to rejoice, or rather to transfer these merits to anyone and everyone who helped make this event possible, who helped organize this sermon, who helped make the furniture available, the facilities available here today, who might have helped you or assisted you in any way, shape or form, perhaps helped you by offering you a glass of water or ushering you to a seat, or perhaps checking if you were comfortable, in any way, shape or form helped you become comfortable or be able to listen to this sermon for the entire duration of this sermon. May all of them be able to rejoice in these merits. May these merits help them all also attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana in this very birth itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, may the merits that we have all acquired today, you will listen to this sermon, and anyone and everyone who helped make this sermon possible, may all those merits that we have all acquired today empower and energize all those beings just like yourselves, the Bhikkhu, Bhikkhunis, Upasaka, Upasikas, who strive day and night to become Arahatun Wahanses, fulfill their ambitions, fulfill their goals, and in doing so may we be able to witness in this blessed land itself many hundreds of thousands of Arahatun Wahanses in the very near future. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, may the merits that we have all acquired today help us all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana in the era of the Gautama Samma Sambuddhajan Wahanse itself, in this very human birth itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Adai, Siri Denata Maha Sangaratne Sing Mettani Sansing Asivada Kana Pingutan Siri Dena Vandana Karagana. This is a chanting by the Mahasangha as a blessing for all of you. Raga ginneng midetwa, desha ginneng midetwa, moha ginneng midetwa, nibbana para සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා මමද සියලු ලෝක සියලු සත්වයෝ නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා තුන්රුවන්ගේ සූවිසි අනන්ත මහා ගුණ බැලෙන් සියලු ලෝක සියලු සත්වයෝම නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා. May the noble triple gem always be with you. සියලු දෙනාට දරුවන් සරණයි.